Hi everyone. Today I'm painting Charlie Chaplin. The reference photo is a screen cap from City Lights. The person who commissioned it asked me to paint him in black and white, so after I applied masking fluid to the highlights, I painted a light gray wash over the entire picture and let it dry for an hour. Once it was dry, I started working on the details. People ask me to draw and paint the most unpredictable things. This request was relatively normal. At the moment, I'm also drawing a cartoon version of a woman playing a bass guitar, and I'm making a design of a dragonfly kissing a fruit fly. I've painted things that are much weirder too, and so I never know what kind of requests I'm going to get when somebody emails me. This one was easy. So far, I'm just figuring out the main shapes in his face, and I'm using a number 6 round brush for a lot of it. Bigger shapes call for a bigger brush, and bigger brushes can change a painting in a hurry, so you've got to use them carefully and confidently. In case you can't tell, he's got a white flower in his hand. I masked the entire flower off before I began painting. When I remove the masking fluid, it will be white. I've started working on his hand and jacket, and his hat will be next. I love filling in big areas like this. The pigment flows into the water and spreads around in such a soft way. I'm skipping around as different areas dry. If you paint something next to a spot that's still wet, the two will run together, and unless you want that to happen, you've got to keep that in mind. The actress, whose name is Virginia Cherril, has her hand on the coat. I asked the woman who commissioned this painting if she wanted Virginia to be included, and she said she did. This is a pivotal scene in City Lights, and even though the actress's face is obscured, she felt it was important to have her around. They're standing outside a building, so I'm blocking in some of the simple forms behind them, and then I'm painting the dark side of his jacket and her coat as well. One thing you might not know about me is I don't use black paint in my watercolors. All my darks are created by mixing colors such as purple, blue, green, brown, and red. It's how I was taught in college, and my watercolor professor was pretty old school. He claimed that black killed every color it touched, or at least it turned it to mud, so I've always just avoided it. But I know plenty of wonderful artists who use black, and your mileage may vary. Anyway, I had to buy a tube of Mars Black to paint this, and this is my first time using it. It's sort of a warm brown, and I love the pearly grays it created and the way it behaved in general. So while I was talking, I removed the masking fluid from the flower and other things. Then I came back to it the next day, and I'm spending some time on his face with a number 1 round brush. Charlie Chaplin's eyes are very expressive and enhanced with dark makeup. He really has such an adorable face. I'm adding some mid-tones to his skin, and those darker areas around the flower make it pop more. The eye that is closer to the camera appears a little larger than the eye on the far side of his face. Now I'm just going to add a few shadows to the flower. It didn't require too many, and then I'll spend some time on the lower half of his face, just making the dark areas a little darker. This part of the painting process is my favorite. The hard stuff is over, and I'm happy with it, and now I'm just fine-tuning things. Moving on, I'm adding some shadows to his coat and both hands. He has some raised veins that I want to emphasize along with the spaces between his fingers. Hands are harder to paint than faces, and I try to simplify them and break them down into easy shapes if I can. His hand is casting a shadow on her fingertips, so they need to be a lot darker. Her hand is younger, and there's less going on with it in terms of veins and texture. His hat has been bugging me, so I'm going to go in with some more darkness and details, and while I'm up there, I'll do the same with his hair. I'll also add another layer of darkness to the top part of his hat. The coat could also stand to be darker. Watercolors fade as they dry, and sometimes I'm like, didn't I just paint you? And while this can be a pain to deal with, it sort of ensures that you're not going to paint something too dark unless you're really being careless. I'm using a damp paper towel to soften Virginia's hair, which appeared as a blurry mass in the screen cap. Then I'll darken her chin and go over some of the shadows in her hair again. Blonde hair really requires a variety of lights and darks, often ranging from white to black. Finally, I'm going to add some deeper shadows to the building behind them. I don't want to make this super dark because that would take some of the focus off these two. Time to take the blue painter's tape off. It leaves a nice white edge around the painting and suddenly everything seems a lot darker. Here's the finished painting. Thanks a lot for watching and please subscribe.